Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. Today I want to give you guys a build guide for what I consider just about like the best Forge Guard build that's still actually a Forge Guard. So this is some of the gameplay from earlier this week. This is at nothing crazy. I think it's about like maybe little under 200 corruption-ish. It's a build that does okay. It has some ramp-up time. The damage is pretty good single target, but it's also a life-based build. You can change that, but the more you change that and become a paladin, the more you're really just playing a counterfeit paladin-style Smite build. And, you know, ultimately that probably is the best Forge Guard. But I want to give you guys my experience. I leveled to 90 with a Forge Guard, and I made what I think is just about the best build that, again, is still a Forge Guard. So how does it work? It is a damage over time build where we're using primarily bleed and ignite because we get quite a bit of it from Smelter's Might. And there's quite a lot of other sources that you can get it from also. And now, I am pretty heavily spec'd into Paladin, and this is why Forge Guard is considered the weakest class in the game. I didn't really want to believe it without trying it myself, and now that I have, I basically agree. I think it is actually the weakest class in the game. Why is it the weakest class in the game? You see how usually the passives that are locked are the best ones for a class. So like, you know, the really good Paladin stuff is here. The really good Void Knight stuff is here. And the really good Forge Guard stuff is, well, it's just this one. That's pretty much it. This is really good. This is the only locked node, but it's like 6 strength, 12% health for 6 points. That's it. That's it. So the Smelter's Rat skill is pretty terrible. The Ring of Shields is very weak. Forge Strike is actually really good, but because you basically get no real support for it, the damage just isn't really there. Regardless, here's my idea for the build. So, Multi-Strike is a skill that you attack once, and if there's a target near it, you attack that target as well. And if you attack a total of like 5 times, it costs 40 mana and it spawns a Forge Strike. Now, when one skill procs another skill in Last Epoch, it uses its skill tree. So our Forge Strike is entirely based around dealing damage with the actual hit. Now, this might sound a little counterintuitive because the Forge Knight is a minion class. That's the first trap that gets you. The Forge Knight is not really a minion class because it has almost no nodes that support minions. Its minions are just terrible. You can't really buff them. I tried going full minions and you can get like, I don't know, 12 or 13 forged weapons at the same time. Do you know what happened? I would never get the maximum number of forged weapons because as I'm ramping them up, the early ones are just dead at that point. They have very little in terms of base stats and they just don't do very well. But Forge Strike itself does an enormous amount of damage. I don't think it says, oh yeah, added melee damage applies at 500% effectiveness. And we also have this thing here, which is Detonate Ground. Added damage is applied at 200% effectiveness. I haven't personally tested, but online people were saying that everything that buffs the damage of the actual Forge Strike also buffs the damage of Detonating Ground. So effectively, we have a skill that does 700 base damage. And we are proccing it from Multi-Strike. So even though Forge Strike has a cooldown, we're bypassing it by scaling attack speed and using Multi-Strike. We're also doing Smites from Multi-Strike. And these Smites, these attacks are also proccing Healing Hands. So we're getting healing effect and a little bit of extra damage. And on top of that, we're using Aurelis, which is a weapon that says 100% chance to cast Smite after you use Multi-Strike and hit a boss or enemy. So if we hit a boss, it looks like this. We can just constantly hold down multi-strike. The multi-strikes are spawning smites every single hit. The multi-strike is spawning healing hands every single hit. And every 5 hits, I'm getting a forge strike, which is a 700% damage skill. I also get some forge weapons, but they basically suck. It's so many hits. You can see the full line of ailments there. And you can see that I have like 120 armor shred. So the way that I'm playing this build is Singularity, where we have pretty decent hit damage, but we're mainly scaling the ailments. It's just, in Last Epoch, if a skill that has a 700% damage modifier is triggering an ailment, that ailment's base damage will be affected by its damage modifier. And we also have physical penetration with bleed plus 100%, bleed duration. So there's other nodes that give you stronger ailments. There's also ailments inflicted by forge strike deal increased damage over time equal to your stun chance, and you can get a whole bunch of stun chance in this tracer, and actually just stacks them because it's kind of a crappy stat otherwise. And also with multi-strike, we have this thing where instead of the extra swords, they're replaced with extra smites. So when it's a lot of targets, actually, I don't think it's triggering here. Yeah, it's not triggering on these dummies for some reason. But basically, when there's lots of targets, we get lots of smites. And smite does pretty good damage, and you can spec smite to have stronger and longer electrifies. And electrify is a pretty strong ailment. And the lightning smite converts ignite chance into electrify, buffs it up, makes it longer, and Aurelius has lightning penetration with electrify. So normally, when you'd hear someone telling you all this stuff, it actually sounds like a pretty good build. And honestly, if I was trying to mislead you guys, doing like 300 corruption on the Forge Guard is actually pretty good. The thing is, it'll kind of start doing pretty low damage compared to just about every other class. The only thing that still makes it a Forge Guard is the fact that we can spec into Forge Strike. We have some auxiliary minions to take hits for us. But the real fact of the matter is that the Forge Guard tree is so hideous, it's just so bad, that even though the base damage of everything I'm doing is really crazy high, like one attack proccing 4 others constantly, scaled with attack speed, huge multipliers in play. No, the damage is still pretty bad. Damage is still pretty bad is because there's just nothing here. There's nothing here. So they do need to do a Forge Guard rework, in my opinion. I think the class is still lacking quite a bit. If you have played a Forge Guard and you want to basically get the most of it, you're basically going to be playing a Paladin where you are using Smite, directly using Smite, which will enable you to get the Hand of Aurelius, which gives you a crazy big heal with healing hands, and you can convert it and get lots of wards. So you'll basically be invincible. That's kind of how my Void Knight build works. Now, you'll still be invincible because it's a really overtuned mechanic. It's not bugged, but it is an incredibly overtuned mechanic. But still, let's just be real. If you do that, you will be using 0 Forge Guard skills. You will be picking probably 0 Forge Guard passives. You will basically be playing a Paladin with much less healing, because the really good healing is here, and the really good damage from Void Knight is here. So you're just going to be playing a really crappy version of a very good Paladin build. That's really the best Forge Guard build. You know, I want to just throw that out there for you guys. But if you really want to play that build, play a Void Knight, like my previous build guide, or play a Paladin if you want like a hardcore, more defensive version of it. Forge Guard, that's still a Forge Guard. You're basically looking at it. It can be pretty fun still, and honestly, 300 corruption is pretty ambitious for a lot of people. So the link for my build is below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one.